People try to get him, never gonna get him. They walk in the line. Hugo and Jake talking shit and fighting crime. And even if you could catch them, you'd never stop the action. A popular culture walks wheeling on down the road. A popular culture shooting lasers at things that explode. Unpopular culture. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hello Internet, I'm Hugo.
And I am Jake.
And this is Unpopular Culture, and today we are looking at the Jessica Jones trailer.
Yes, Jessica Jones is going to come out soon, and we mentioned a little bit during our reviews of Daredevil, and not a lot of people know what Jessica Jones is about. And she comes from the comics called Alias, which is actually the first for adults only comic that Marvel ever created. Mm-hmm. And it's the first one with like super graphic violence, graphic language, and sex scenes, stuff like that. And it's a really, really dark thing. And what a lot of people are talking about is, can Marvel, in all of its extended universe-iness, because this is connected directly, can they do a good job of telling the Jessica Jones story while maintaining as close to PG-13 as they've been trying to do? Because the very first word in the Jessica Jones comics is the word fuck.
Personally, my thoughts on it, based on this trailer alone, I think they're going to do a fine job. Based on the trajectory that they have set during Daredevil, where they're willing to go with these stories, I think they're going to do a fine job with the Jessica Jones stuff, but I guess we will see.
I agree. So let's start out. We're going to break down this trailer to try to get to the bottom of whether or not they can pull this off.
A big part of the job is looking for the worst in people.
So we see here that they have the Alias investigations, which is where the comic got its name. She's a private investigator. She used to be a superhero, sort of. She's not like... She's got similar powers to like Superman, even though this is Marvel Universe, where she can fly a little bit. She's not great at it. She has above average strength. She's not invulnerable, but she's very not vulnerable.
Yeah.
And she ends up going through very traumatic things that we will talk about through the course of this review, and then ends up not being that, and then does this for work.
I also think it's interesting that they couldn't. They were originally calling this AKA Jessica Jones because they wanted it to be similar to the comic name Alias. If you're wondering why they couldn't just call the show Alias, well, there was already a show Alias that ruined it.
Ben Affleck's ex-wife, the bitch,
who also ruined Elektra. So thanks.
Turns out I excel at that.
You a PI?
So here we get our first look at Luke Cage, who is also going to be part of the Defender series, and is he getting the next nod at a solo show?
Yeah, he's next after Jessica Jones. I think Daredevil Season 2 is next, and then directly after that, Luke Cage is supposed to come out.
Okay, that's good, because I really liked the first season of Daredevil, obviously. So Luke Cage is basically a hero for hire. He's very similar in powers to Jessica Jones, although I don't think he can do any flying things.
No, he can't do fly. He's like bulletproof and he's strong, and that's his deal, and he operates out of Harlem, I think, at least in the series. It's interesting to me that they are starting off this series with a crossover already. It makes me wonder if maybe we're going to see some Matt and Foggy. She's a private investigator, so I gotta assume, especially because later we see her in a police department, I assume there's a lot of room for them to run into each other, especially because they're operating out of very similar areas.
Sure. Also, Luke Cage plays a relatively common role in Jessica Jones's life. They're sort of... Romantic's a weird word to use for them, because I'm not terribly familiar with the comics. I just had like a quick rundown of all the information, kind of prepping for Jessica Jones as a series. I do know that she's very self-destructive sexually, and that's kind of one of the things, like the threads, because, again, we'll talk about it later, but she goes through a lot of shit, and she just kind of like, in a search for... her words, feeling anything, she kind of just like she turns to alcoholism, and it's a very dark look into what happens if you're not a superhero anymore, and kind of it's kind of post-traumatic stress, but it's also kind of just dealing with the implications of being such a person. So Luke Cage has some hand to play in that. It's not like he's a bad guy, but she sort of It's not a healthy relationship. So I wonder how they're going to tackle that. So I'm trying to remain unspoilery for the sake of this review.
I'm just trying to make a living. You know, booze costs money.
Yeah, and so apparently she is going to actually be a little self-destructive in this, which is actually a good casting call then, because she was Jesse's girlfriend in Breaking Bad. And as we know, you don't usually die by choking on your own vomit when everything's all good.
Maybe that's how this show's gonna end. It's gonna turn out the entire Marvel universe was just a hallucination she was having before she OD'd. But I actually like the idea of the superhero who's kind of an alcoholic and fucked up. Hancock tried to do that, but just failed terribly. So
you know what did it well was Watchmen with the comedian.
Yeah. I'm hoping this show sets a standard for sort of the damaged superhero.
Yeah, and there's also another superhero that they don't have the right to, which is Jean Grey, who apparently, and I don't know how, she plays a huge role in all of this, especially with the arch villain. Because she's a psychic, and that will obviously, we will show you how that ties in a little bit. But Fox owns Jean Grey because she's an X-Man.
Yeah.
So I have no idea if they're going to talk about it or maybe skirt around the issue, because she's supposed to have some sort of huge plot.
They might
involved.
just replace her with a different character with similar powers or
could.
something. What Marvel's, so far, their strategy has been, as far as mutants in the world, they've replaced them with a different set of people called Inhumans, which are very similar to mutants. I would go as far to say they're exactly mutants with a different name, and they're doing a lot of that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and there's an Inhumans movie that they're making too, so it seems as though they're not really trying to get X-Men back right now. What they're trying to do is just replace a lot of the stuff that the X-Men are doing in the Marvel Universe with these Inhumans. So maybe they'll do something with that. I don't know.
And kind of the thing with Jessica Jones is, too, people have kind of forgotten about her. So she's not very well known in the hero community, so that's why she can do this kind of PI stuff.
Yeah.
Usually.
Jessica Jones.
And there we get to see she can fly, sort of.
I hope we don't see her fly too much in the series, because honestly, I can't imagine their effects budget is good enough to make it look convincing. But she's not terribly good at flying anyways, so it would be okay. Yeah, so I'm hoping it's something that's alluded to and used in times of extreme duress, where she just needs to get away or chase someone, maybe. But I hope it's not done too much, because
it's more like a LeBron jump. She just has like a lot of hang time.
Sure.
I saw you.
I don't know what that means. Maybe he knows that she's like a metahuman at this point.
I assume he was seeing her fly, so I assume he's going to recognize in her the same things that he sees in himself, assuming he has his powers yet. I guess I don't know the timeline as far as this is concerned, if Luke Cage is Power Man yet. I don't know. I don't know that much about Luke Cage, so I don't know if it's something he was born with or something that happens. As far as I
money's on chemical spill. Since that's how she got hers, and that's how Daredevil gets his.
Maybe it is, yeah.
What do you want to know?
Can you punch through a wall? Stop a moving car?
A slow-moving car.
And then we get like a little insight, just to kind of hammer home the idea that she's like the Diet Coke of superhero powers.
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting, because even though she's not super powerful as far as like Superman and stuff goes, she's easily going to be one of the most powerful defenders. So this show is going to have to take a very different route than Daredevil, whereas Daredevil, definitely street level hero with street level thugs. Daredevil's just a normal guy. She could punch through most of the Fisk thugs, so this is going to have to be more of a psychological, mystery-driven series than Daredevil was, because not everything can be a fight scene, otherwise she'd just tear through everyone immediately.
And that's good, because the whole story of Jessica Jones has very little to do with her powers and everything to do with the points that she's powerless. Not to mean she loses her powers, but her arch nemesis kind of has a lot to do with that, and he will be revealed shortly, because it's going to be a really, really dark series, and the story is more about her dealing with this guy than it is about anything else.
The way I see it, being a hero just puts a target on your back.
Been there, done that.
To this door.
I really love the song and the color palette they're going with for this, because might as well just say it now. The main villain, he has a couple names. The number one is called the Purple Man, which is kind of lame, but his last name is Kilgrave, and they go by that a lot. And it's actually played by David Tennant, who is of Doctor Who fame and other stuff. He's also on Broadchurch, which is also a really good Netflix series. But I really like the song.
I do like
So
this.
hopefully this is part of the title sequence.
I like the song too. The whole thing with the purple stuff, I'm wondering how they're going to do the Purple Man in this, if it's just going to be the effect that he has in your mind. Because in the actual comic, he's literally a man his skin is purple. But in this, every time we see David Tennant, he's a normal skinned-looking person. So I'm wondering if at any point in the series he will become purple, or if it's just going to be alluded to more with his power effect.
I hope he doesn't become purple, because that's fine with me, because the reason he was in the Marvel comic is his skin was different and it secreted the pheromones that allows him to do what his power is. And his power is he can make anyone do anything he wants, pretty much. He's a very specific psychic. He's not like where he can read thoughts and stuff. Like, he's not like Charles Xavier. He's just, I can control you. He's like a puppeteer.
Sure. And
he can make people do anything. We'll get some examples of that as we go. And that's really interesting. And obviously, she was terribly affected by this. And yes, it's as dark as you think it is.
What if there was someone else out there? But his ability was to make people do whatever he wanted.
That's a pretty cool shot. And yeah, so his abilities, he can make people do whatever he wants. And Tenet right there, that's really cool. I hope they have scenes like this where she's thinking about that and he kind of pops up for a second, and maybe over time you won't know when it's real or not.
Yeah, I always like the idea of the villain and the hero talking a lot, especially when you have a psychic villain. It's really interesting because you can have these conversations pretty much whenever you want. So this is going to deal with both the trauma and him actually invading her mind continually, which is very, very interesting, and I like that dynamic, especially when you have a hero whose powers are very physically based, when you're someone who can just beat people up. You need a villain who is psychological. That's why Batman and Joker work so well, because if you have all the power to beat people up, you need someone who can fuck things up in ways that you can't control.
You like mind control?
You have no idea what I've done.
This is very interesting because it's starting to go through this montage of stuff he's made her do, I assume, because her hands will be covered in blood and stuff right here, and obviously she's digging with just her hands. We'll get some examples of what he's done to other people. In the comics, before we go any further, it's very important to note, what he did was he kept her for 8 months prisoner, and it was super fucked up. It's worse than rape, if you can believe it or not. So he never rapes her, but he makes her want him, like, sexually and emotionally and romantically as much as possible. Never allows her that, and then makes her watch him rape other people.
That's one of the most messed up backstories to a villain I think I've ever heard. That's just so insane. That's like,
for 8 months. That's Joker on steroids kind of shit.
Yeah, I think even the Joker would be a little bit like, whoa, dude, calm down. That's not funny.
And he tortured Jason Todd for months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, so this is the kind of stuff we're getting into. And that's why I don't know if Netflix can pull that off without kind of bending what happened. You can't show it, obviously.
No,
I mean, you can show a certain level of it. Netflix doesn't have like a limit on it. I mean, Nympho's on there, for fuck's sake. But Netflix and Marvel specifically is not going to let their franchise be marred by, oh yeah, this is rife with rape scenes.
I think Netflix is the people that they're willing to hire. I think they're going to have a talented person who's able to allude to things very well. And that's the great thing about film as opposed to like a book or a comic. A comic, you pretty much have to spell something out. Or if you're a talented artist and a designer of, scenes and how to set things up, you can do things very well visually. In a book, you have to write things out specifically and explain exactly what's happening. In a movie or a TV show, because it is a visual medium, there are a million different ways you can explain a scenario without actually having to show it. And especially themes of sexual violence, they can be very powerfully done through visual images. Like, you could pan away and just show a simple object, like maybe it's something on a table, and you could just sort of maybe hear things, or you see a door from the outside and you hear muffled things, and you can show things very powerfully without actually having to show these things that you wouldn't be able to explain otherwise.
So I'm just hoping that they can give the same impact and grit that the comic has in the series, while still having Marvel be like, yeah, okay, you can continue to do that.
They got away with a lot of violence on Daredevil, so I'm hoping...
Violence is... Yeah, but there's a difference between sexual violence and violence, and that's why it's going to be a thin line, and they probably got in trouble a few times from the producers before this came out. But They put together a whole season, so
What he made me do.
Jess, he isn't here now.
Yeah, well, he's always here.
that's awesome because that means that she's always dealing with this. And you ever wonder, like, what if Batman only ever had to deal with the Joker? That's what this is going to be like.
Probably.
And as long as you make that villain, and everybody thinks the Joker is incredibly interesting, as long as you make that villain as interesting as possible, and if it's a guy that can literally get whatever he wants whenever he wants it, that's crazy interesting. And like you said, it's a really good dichotomy between her being able to physically handle any situation, but the only weakness she has is a person that can control how she is physically.
I think if anyone's going to pull this off, it's going to be David Tennant, especially, we'll see him in a minute. The voice he uses, it seems like a person who's used to getting every single thing they want. It's very charismatic. It's very cool.
Yes? You'd like to invite me in? Absolutely.
That's so great. He didn't even have to, like, do the vampire thing.
No.
You know what I mean?
He didn't.
But it's a good shot, though, because it's not revealing. You already know who it is, but it's like you can just see the person hesitated for a little bit, and that's it wasn't just immediate. It was such a good touch.
I like the fact that, like, once he does it, though, he just submits to it. He's just like, oh, yeah, he's not just doing what he's told, he's happy to be doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's like, oh, of course, yeah, come in.
And as you can see, it's going to be super fucked up.
Yeah, that little girl being locked in that closet, that's going to be maybe I don't know what that's going to be, but it's going to be something messed up. I think
she's going to be witness to it, sort of.
Yeah.
Like he's going to murder people.
I think Fisk's character in Daredevil, while it was incredibly violent and it was a sympathetic villain. It was a villain that you felt for and you could kind of understand even though he's crazy. I think David Tennant's villain is going to be great in almost the opposite way. I think he's going to be a psychopath who you absolutely cannot sympathize with, and he's going to do just awful things, and I think it's going to be very cool to watch.
I'm totally fine with that, too, because even Jessica Jones as a character, you don't necessarily identify with. She's incredibly self-destructive throughout the entire series, and frankly makes a lot of fucked up decisions on her way to do it. So I would like this to be like we watch this and we're always uncomfortable, but it's accessible enough to keep watching.
Sure.
Like there's a really good way to do that, and I think from the trailer, and because you got Tenet, who has a lot of clout, I think it'll be fine.
Kilgrave leaves a trail of broken people behind him.
He made me jump for hours as high as I could. He said I was never as good as you.
That's awesome, too. That just shows he's just fucked up and he does it for fun.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to gain from that other than hurting someone.
I know, it's really messed up. I like that it's in this police station, though. I'm hoping they got the same police station set as they did for Daredevil, because that'd be really cool, even if she doesn't happen to run into any of the characters from Daredevil. Maybe she could even run into the police officer from Daredevil. I forget his name. It escapes me at the moment, but...
Mahoney?
Yeah, but I think it'd be cool if it was the same station, and even if they don't run into each other, they're there. You know what I mean? Make it feel more like it's all in the same world.
Well, they're pretty close proximity-wise anyways. So.
I think she operates out of Hell's Kitchen, or if not, she's in a neighborhood very near it.
Yeah, so I assume we'll have crossover at some point.
He's back. He's coming for me.
I love the purple. I assume the purple is anytime he's affecting someone's mind, like, or maybe just Jessica Jones's mind, because she's the eyes we're watching this through.
Maybe. It makes me think that's how they're going to handle the Purple Man thing, because, the skin... I'm a sucker for kind of cheesy things, so if they made his skin purple by the end of the season, I would actually think that's kind of cool, but I understand why in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe it wouldn't work. Even if it's a little something, even if, like, it is just his eyes or something become purple, I think that'd be cool, but as it is, if it's just the effect that happens and we get some cool cinematography out of it, that's fine.
He's wearing a purple suit.
Sure, that's acceptable. I understand why they can't do certain things in TV shows that they do in comics, but if that's the way they transfer it, if that's the way that the medium handles it, it's very well done.
Let's start now. No! Jessica, I'm the only one who matches you.
That's awesome.
This
too,
is
because
Oh.
I keep saying that's awesome, but it's because it's awesome.
This is going to be a really good scene. I think that's going to be a lot of the peril in this season. Oh, look. Oh, you paused it at just the right time. Look at Stan Lee's picture in the background again. He is the police chief.
There it is.
So-
It should be the same police station then.
Yeah. So anyway, I do think that stuff like this is going to be prevalent. Instead of, her directly facing people in combat, I think he's going to put people in peril and she has to stop it somehow. Maybe even he's like, Jessica, I'm not going to control you directly, but even worse, I'm going to hurt these people if you don't do this thing for me. And then she has to decide, am I going to do this or whatever?
Yeah, what I would like is if it was the procedural of all the different ones, and he doesn't have a hand in every episode, but like we build towards him.
Sure.
Like the first episode, obviously, I think this is from the first episode or one of the first two, and you got to have him because you got to set the thread. Like that's who it is.
Well, we didn't get Fisk until episode 4 of Daredevil.
No, but it wasn't about Fisk, but Kilgrave and Jessica Jones. That's the story. The story isn't Jessica Jones. It's the two of them. So I'm hoping that like it'll have an ebb and flow. I don't want him to be the guilty guy, the criminal every week. I would like him to have a hand in every week or most weeks where like something will trigger her a little bit and she'll think about it, or maybe she'll think he's gone and the next episode he comes back and it really fucks her up. Like that's cool. I'm good with that. But I would also like to see some of the other villains that they have to offer in this. They're clearly going a much darker tone even from Daredevil. So
We're inevitable.
Oh my god. God didn't do this. The devil did. And I'm gonna find him.
okay, that's obviously we're much darker than Daredevil.
Yeah.
Already. We're having people jump off and kill themselves.
I'm wondering if this is going to be a thing that happens all through the season, him making people kill themselves in front of her, because it seems weird that we'd have the police station scene and this scene if they're not related, but very dark imagery.
Loving it.
And just remember, somewhere Don Cheadle and Tony Stark are laughing about some snarky remark he made.
I know, isn't that great?
Yeah.
How they're just like, they're in the same universe and it seems like they're worlds apart.
I think this is the only time in the trailer we actually see David Tennant's face as the Purple Man, which is interesting. I wonder why they chose this shot in particular. It looks like he's almost restrained. Maybe it's from the end of the season when she finally catches him or something, and I don't know how she's even going to catch him, though. How could he be kept in a prison? You know what I mean? He could always just be like, you need to let me out now. You know what I hope is the ending shot of this series?
What's that?
David Tennant thrown in a prison cell as the Purple Man, maybe with some special apparatus to make sure he can't tell people what to do. Zoom out, slowly, cell next to him is Wilson Fisk.
That'd be cool.
I think that'd be great and an interesting setup to Defenders.
Also, he's right here.
Oh, I missed that.
Come on, Jessica.
I like the fact that she's not comfortable with what she's looking at, and that we're getting this really cool message left, probably on an answering machine, or if they still have those in this universe, but probably like a cell phone or something, where he's just tormenting her. I love the idea of he's just, everything's a plaything to him.
Yeah.
Don't play the hero with me.
So that's the end of the trailer. I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's going to be really strong. I think we're going to, all Daredevil fans should be able to transfer over to this pretty well and get a little bit darker even more from where we were with Daredevil.
I think there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off, because I think the themes of the show, Daredevil, there was a lot of fighting. So people who are really into the fight scenes in Daredevil, they might be a little disappointed in the lack of them here. There's definitely going to be fight scenes. I guarantee it, because they wouldn't give her super strength if she wasn't going to use it sometimes. But it'll be less, ooh, look at this cool martial arts, and just look at her face these people. Now let's go on to the investigation, because I assume a lot of the show, being that she's a private detective, is going to be the investigations. Now, I could be wrong, because you would argue that maybe Daredevil should have had more courtroom scenes, being that he's a lawyer, but I don't know. I think it'll be good. I'm very, very excited to see where they take this show and the TV universe in general.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I'm wondering if they're gonna kind of, this is the bottom of, like, this is the darkest our threshold will be as Jessica Jones. And then like Daredevil and Luke Cage are kind of going to be middling, and then Iron Fist will kind of be a little bit more on the lighter side because he seems more of a gimmick than any of them.
Yeah, I think Iron Fist will probably be run as a little bit more of a, if you're looking at what the shows are, Daredevil's, it's a crime fighting show. He's a lawyer. Jessica Jones is definitely going to be more of an investigation show. Luke Cage is going to be, fighting crime on the streets. I think Iron Fist is going to be more of a martial arts oriented style show. It'll be more in the style of sort of a martial arts movie, but done as a television show.
Yeah, I think it'll be neat though. I think all of them have a different thing to offer, which is good because if we were just going to give 4 of the same thing, I don't think there'd be a big market for that. But so I'm glad that we're going to get a different taste of what the Marvel Universe has to offer throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Also, she had sort of a love affair with, like, Spider-Man and some different ones, although Spider-Man's now, like, 13 years old, so I hope that doesn't happen.
Tom Holland making out with her, like, she's, like, 20 years older than you. Shut up, Iron Man. This is my only chance. Anyway, so thanks, everyone. It looks like a really good show, and just like our Daredevil series, assuming this isn't a surprise shit show, that'd be hilarious if it came out and it was just awful, but assuming it's...
We'll probably do these week by week.
Yeah, maybe do 1 or 2, depending on... Well, maybe just depending on how the story goes. If 2 episodes go well together, we'll review them together. If 1 episode is just really strong, maybe we'll review that on its own. We'll see what happens.
So you can always follow us at The Real Unpop on the Twitter machine.
You can always subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out our Daredevil reviews, because we did that whole season, if you want to catch up on that before you check out Jessica Jones, though you don't, I think, necessarily have to.
If you want to see where the Defenders series has kind of started off, and they kind of have this nice dark gray tone to the whole series, and also it's very well shot. If you haven't seen Daredevil, go watch it and watch our reviews and see if you agree with us or disagree, whatever, because it's a really, really great series that everyone should watch. If you want to support the show, you can go to our Patreon and do things there, and maybe you'll get stuff back, or maybe you won't, or maybe you hate us and never want to come back again, which is fine. We didn't have to be friends. This was not a binding thing, you clicking on this video, but I mean, we should have tried. We should have tried harder.
So thanks, everyone. Until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I am Jake.
And this has been Unpopular Culture, looking at the new Jessica Jones trailer.